Season 21, or Season of the Deep, is the second of 4 seasons releasing alongside Lightfall. After Season 20's disappointing narrative and seasonal activity, and then Lightfall's controversial launch, my feelings were mixed about the upcoming season. Was this season a step up from the last? Will the seasonal activities hold up throughout Lightfall's lifespan? And what else was coming our way? This is my review for Season of the Deep. While leaks were flying around social media, and we were given hints by Bungie themselves, I tried to keep a blind eye for what was to come. While I could not avoid everything, the pieces I saw made me excited. While I wanted to believe everything I was told or exposed to, I waited until it was finally here, and it was safe to say the leaks were on point. The season started us off receiving a distress call from an old vendor from the Year 1 days. We fly to Titan, which was taken over by the Pyramid Fleet back in Season of Arrivals. We venture through a familiar place and ended up face to face with the Hive, while Zavala, Saint 14, Drifter, and Saladin are in the mission with us. But we hear a voice that booms over the comms.
I am the mountain upon which all swords shatter!
For the first time in Destiny history, Xivu Arath speaks. Titan has been left barren and destroyed, but walking around the familiar places felt nostalgic. But we eventually reach a hole that leads straight into the water. Salone's signal is deep in the depths, and we're left with no choice but to dive. But on first attempt, we're pulled out of the water just before we're crushed by the pressure. Then, Drifter gives us gear to last longer and now collect bubbles to reduce the pressure, and we were then met with some stunning scenery. After a short dive, we arrive at the signal.
You don't understand. That distress call wasn't for me. It was for her.
The signal came from a leviathan called Asha, later known to be an old enemy of the Witness itself, and Salone wasn't looking too good either. Throughout the weeks we learn more about Asha, her connection with the Witness and Xivu's looming presence over Titan. We meet with many of our favourite characters, and they express their feelings towards all this information and if we can trust Asha as an ally. At the end of each mission, we dive to collect egregore coral to give to Asha, and in return, she uses Sloane to speak to us about the Witness and the threats coming our way. Specifically in week 5, we're told information that changed everything.
But they would not be deterred. Having witnessed the truth in the darkness, they used its binding power to merge themselves into the salvation they craved. Thus began the Witness's pursuit, its campaign to impose meaning on a meaningless universe, one that is nearly at its end.
The Witness's origins were revealed. The cutscene shows that the Witness's race were the first to communicate with the Traveler and gain paracausal powers that we use to this day. We know the race feared the Traveler's terraforming powers and looked for something to combine with it, also known as the Veil. The Traveler saw the plans of the Witness's race and fled, so using the power of darkness, the race combined itself into one single being, who we now know as the main villain, the Witness. This cutscene was huge, and in terms of story and lore, it answered so many questions and gave us insight into what the Witness is and the plans of it. After watching it, my jaw was on the floor, but a question loomed over my head. Why was this not in Lightfall? In the following weeks, we heard more from Xivu, who put herself front and center in this confrontation. The final story mission approaches, and like the last season, the gameplay wasn't too great, but we did get something crazy that followed. Xivu speaks through Sloane and confirms our theories. We will be bringing back Savathun and convincing her to help us. While the Vanguard aren't too optimistic about the odds of this succeeding, the community loved the news. While last season's story wasn't anything to speak of, this season's storyline was a step in the right direction. I actually cared about the upcoming weeks and what information we would get. While the missions themselves aren't anything different than what we've had for the past 2 years, the story was enough to carry it through to the end. Overall, I give the story 8.5 out of 10. Season of the Deep brought us 2 activities, deep dives and salvage. The 6-man activity, salvage, had us either in the arcology or outside doing random activities, while deep dives had us in groups of 3, diving deeper as the season went on, giving us options of power-ups like roguelike games. While my favourite of the 2 was deep dives, because of the difficulty changing options we had, the idea and concept of the activity was something I was looking forward to, and it paid off well. I really want more activities like this, hopefully with us choosing what boss to encounter and having random arenas to fight in too. Like the story, these activities are a massive step up from the last, and even though salvage can get stale, I really hope there are more similar 6-man activities like it. Oh, and we got fishing. I like fishing. Overall, the activities are more than enjoyable to myself. Deep dives are an amazing concept that I would love to be expanded on as the years go on. So, I'll give them a 7.5 out of 10. Last season's weapons were nothing amazing. In this season, it wasn't much different. We got reckoning weapons and their taken versions that changed their archetype or their elemental damage, but in all honesty, I've crafted them, but I'm still yet to use them. From what I've heard, spare rations is okay, and the SMG was good, until the dungeon SMG came out. So, I'll give them a 4 out of 10. We need new weapons. Every 2 seasons we get a dungeon. Last year we got Duality and Spire of the Watcher, which, all in all, were fairly good for the story and in terms of enjoyability. So, this season, we got Ghost of the Deep, and I completed it with a friend on day 1. We then went through it again to find all the low pieces, then again for the catalyst for the exotic, and then farmed it for the weapons and armor. So yeah, I've played it a lot, and I've had my fair share of videos on it too. In the dungeon, we set off deep within the arcology. We complete rituals by following symbols and killing the light bearers for their visage of light, then using it to place in ritual spots. This mechanic doesn't change much throughout the dungeon, but each encounter uses it in different ways to keep things fresh. We run into familiar names who have turned into light bearers from Savathun, like Ektar and Samuamu, or however you call her name, who were also the bosses of this dungeon, and they both played great, although their health needs a little tuning. The environments of this dungeon is stunning. Compared to the bleak and dry desert, this was beautiful in contrast. The green forest of the arcology, the light gothic tones of the ship, and the colourful environments of the coral in the depths of the ocean. Speaking of stunning, the armour is some of the best in the game, and something even better, it shades well too. The weapons, even though they look terrible, I can assure you, the origin trait and the perks they can roll with are not. This is the first time to me that both the weapons and armour are good in the same dungeon. So the dungeon is great. The lore, weapons, armour, encounters and the environment all work well together. So overall, I give this dungeon a 9 out of 10. It felt like years until we got this quest. It was leaked months before it came out. 4 weeks before the quest, we got another quest from Hawthorne to catch a certain amount of fish for some week rewards. Each week, the fishing spot changed to a different planet, and a new exotic fish came out of it. We would then dunk them into the fish tank and get parts to put into secret statues within deep dives. After you activate all 3 statues, a door opens and a timer starts. We venture into a pyramid structure and find ourselves one-on-one with a tormentor that chases us throughout the mazed halls, which was honestly terrifying. After killing all 4 minotaurs, the damage starts, and once you've killed him, you are then rewarded with the most disappointing exotic in the game. But overall, I give this quest a 7 out of 10. In average, this season gets a 7.5 out of 10. While it sounds low on paper, this season was a definite upgrade from the last. but it's still outshined by the best we've had over the past 3 years. The story, dungeon, deep dives, and the exotic quest were highlights of the season, but unfortunately, the fatigue has already hit players. I really do hope the reveal of the final shape can revive the players' optimisms in the community, and we can slowly get back to delivering the best Destiny can get. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.